Thank you. I'm Elizabeth Guman with Strategy Arts, and I'm here telling this story because I love Michael and PWP and what you're working to create here, and I've never told a story before, so I'm nervous. So moving right along, when I thought about that theme and I thought about what PWP is doing here and creating a community of people who are trying to work towards impact, I thought of a moment in my life where I was moving right along, and it was a lunch that I had with Judy Wicks. But to kind of set the stage, I have to go back a little bit and tell you a little bit of background, and that is that I went to business school in the early 80s. And the reason I chose to go to business school in the early 80s was because when I was growing up, my dad was a banker for a small town bank in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And as a little girl, I would go run errands with him during Saturdays, and we'd go to, buy a refrigerator, or go to the hardware store, and those kinds of things. And, they all knew my dad, and they would tell me how much they appreciated how he had lent them money and did things so that they could start their business and grow their business. And I just saw this network of respect and care, and how these businesses were and then enabled to serve the community. And I was really enthralled by that, and that's what I wanted to be a part of. So I went to business school. And as you can guess, in the early 80s, that is not what business school was about. My colleagues, really nice people, but really what they wanted was to get big, high-paying jobs in big corporations. And the coveted jobs were like those management tracks in the big corporations. So that was kind of the beginning of sort of a stuckness or a dissonance that I was experiencing. And that dissonance just lasted for a while. I had other things that distracted me. I got my first job as a tech startup in a company in Valley Forge. I learned that what I really liked doing was running meetings and training and adult learning development. I started a family. I started my first business. I was a freelance consultant. And so all these things kind of distracted me, and the dissonance was there. I wasn't part of that community that cared about business being a force for good. But, enough other things were going on in my life. And then there came a point where my husband left his full-time job and was able to work with me for a few years and be a part-time at-home dad. And that gave me space to be able to kind of think more about my work and what I wanted to do. And in that space, that dissonance, that stuckness kind of showed up more. And I was able to pay more attention to it. And I was like, what am I going to do about this? The reason I got into this work, I'm not there. I'm not connected to that community. And so we researched a little bit. The kind of up-and-coming thing was corporate social responsibility. My husband, Peter, went to a conference in New York City about corporate social responsibility, and he's like, this is it. This is what you want, your community. But it was like people from all over the country, and I really wanted that local connection. And so he asked somebody, who's about this in Philadelphia? And they said, Judy Wicks, White Dog Cafe. So he got home, he called Judy and said, can we meet? And Judy said yes. And so she invited us to lunch, and we went to lunch in the White Dog Cafe. And if you've been there, well, I don't know if it's still there now, but we were in the piano lounge. And so we're in this booth with red velvet seats, and there's the baby grand piano there, and talking to Judy Wicks. And before I went, I had done some research about Judy because I hadn't known about her before. And I was super intimidated. This woman has done amazing things. So I'm sitting there at lunch, like, why is she having lunch with us? I don't know, but we are. And she was telling us about her vision for getting a community of people together who really care about business being a force for good in Philadelphia. And I was like, well, this is what I was looking for. This is it. And so, she told us about her plans, and I just thought, I just don't think I fit in here. Like, I'm suburban. I'm like, I'm not like kind of the activist person Judy is, but her vision really fit with my vision. And so there was this moment of decision of, do I kind of push back past my intimidation, and do I get myself out of this stuckness and move? And so I decided to take her up on her invitation, and I went to this first meeting that she invited me to. It was a group of people who cared about the same things Judy cared about. And that group of people then became the board of directors for the Sustainable Business Network that started up the Sustainable Business Network. I then had the opportunity to co-chair the Sustainable Business Network with Judy a few years later. In the meantime, I had met a colleague who was doing similar business, and I went from being a solo consultant to being a business partner, and we started Strategy Arts. As co-chair of SBN, I learned about B Corps. I met the founders as they were starting the B Corp movement, and we became a founding B Corp. And so that lunch started this whole movement for me that allowed me to create, or kind of get to this point of realizing this community that I had looked for back when I started business school. And I'm really grateful for that moment of having that lunch with Judy and hearing about her vision, and then making that decision to move along out of my stuckness, out of my dissonance, and be able to be part of this community here where I'm with human beings who care what I care about, and who are looking to have businesses and all organizations really focus on being human and embracing humanity, and creating businesses as being a force for good. And I hope I can continue to move along in that process.